I sacrificed so much to marry my wife, but today she suggested an open marriage. I never imagined this would be my life. Sitting across from my wife at the dinner table, the smell of her favorite pasta wafting through the air, while she nonchalantly suggested, maybe we should consider opening our marriage. I stared at her, the fork in my hand frozen midair, as if time itself had paused to emphasize the weight of her words. My chest tightened, my throat dried up, and a flood of emotions hit me all at once: confusion, anger, hurt, and disbelief. I searched her face for some indication that she was joking, that this was some twisted prank. But there was no hint of humor in her eyes. She was completely serious. Open our marriage? I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. Yes, she said, her tone light as if she were discussing trying a new restaurant or rearranging the furniture. I think it could be good for us. You know, keep things exciting, bring something fresh into our relationship. Fresh? Exciting? My mind reeled. This was the woman I had fought tooth and nail to be with. The woman for whom I had turned my back on my family when they refused to accept her. The woman who had once looked me in the eye and promised that I was all she ever needed. How can you even suggest this? I finally asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and despair. After everything we've been through? She sighed, as though my reaction was exhausting to her. I'm not saying I don't love you or that I'm unhappy. It's just, we've been together for so long, and I think it would be healthy for us to explore other connections. Other connections. The words stung like a slap across the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had given her everything, my love, my loyalty, my support, even at the cost of my own family. And now she wanted to explore other connections? I pushed my plate aside, my appetite completely gone. Do you have any idea what I've sacrificed for you? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Do you remember what it took for my family to finally accept us? For an entire year, they didn't speak to me because I chose you. Because I loved you. Her expression softened slightly, but it wasn't enough to erase the hurt her suggestion had caused. I know you've done a lot for me, she said, her tone defensive. But this isn't about that. This is about us, about keeping our relationship strong in the long term. Strong? I repeated, incredulous. How does bringing other people into our marriage make it stronger? Do you even hear yourself? She crossed her arms, frustration flickering across her face. It's not about replacing you or what we have. It's about adding to it, expanding our experiences. Plenty of couples have open marriages and thrive. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I could trust implicitly, was sitting across from me, trying to sell me on the idea of inviting strangers into the sacred bond we shared. My mind flashed back to the early days of our relationship, back to when I had been willing to lose everything for her. I had met her during a particularly turbulent time in my life. My parents were old-fashioned, deeply rooted in their beliefs and traditions. When I brought her home for the first time, they made their disapproval clear. They thought we were too different, that our cultures, values, and backgrounds would never align. They told me she wasn't the right fit for our family. But I didn't care. I loved her. I loved her so much that I was willing to risk it all. When my family gave me an ultimatum, her or them, I chose her. For a year, I endured their silence, their absence from my life, because I believed in her, in us. And eventually, my persistence paid off. Slowly but surely, my family came around. They saw how happy she made me, how much I loved her, and they welcomed her into our family with open arms. But now, sitting here, listening to her talk about open marriages as if it were a reasonable next step in our relationship, I felt like a fool. Had I misjudged her all along? Had I fought so hard for someone who didn't value our commitment the way I did? Have you already been seeing someone? I asked suddenly, the thought hitting me like a ton of bricks. Is that what this is about? Her eyes widened in surprise, and she shook her head. No, of course not. This isn't about anyone else. It's just something I've been thinking about for a while. I've been reading about it, and it seems like it could really strengthen our relationship. Reading about it, like this was some self-help trend she had stumbled across online. My blood boiled at the thought. Do you even realize what you're asking of me? Do you even care how this makes me feel? Of course I care, she said, her tone exasperated. That's why I'm bringing it up. I want us to talk about it, to figure out if it's something that could work for us. There is no us in this, I shot back. This is all you. You're the one who wants this. You're the one trying to tear apart everything we've built together. Tear apart? She repeated, her voice rising. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to make things better for us, but you're so stuck in your traditional views that you won't even consider it. Traditional views. The words stung, a cruel reminder of the battles I had fought with my family over those very values. I had defied them, rejected their beliefs, and alienated myself from them for her. And now she was using that against me. I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. You know what? If this is what you want, if this is what you think will make you happy, then maybe you should go find someone else who shares your views. Because it's not me. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock. You're being ridiculous. Am I? I shot back. You're the one who's willing to throw away our marriage for the sake of other connections. And with that, I walked out of the room, leaving her sitting there in stunned silence. I needed air, space, anything to escape the suffocating weight of her words. I spent the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering how we had ended up here. Was this my fault? Had I been too blind, too trusting, to see that she wasn't the person I thought she was? Or had she changed, grown into someone I no longer recognized? The next few weeks were a blur. I avoided her as much as possible, throwing myself into work and spending time with friends to distract myself from the growing chasm between us. She tried to bring up the topic again, but I shut her down every time. I couldn't bear to hear her justify it, to hear her talk about our marriage like it was some experiment she wanted to tweak. Eventually, I moved out. I couldn't stay in the house we had built together, the house that now felt more like a prison than a home. The divorce process was messy, as most divorces are. She fought for the house, claiming she deserved it because I was the one who left. I fought back, unwilling to let her take anything more from me. In the end, we sold the house and went our separate ways. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town and started rebuilding my life from scratch. The first few months were the hardest. I felt lost, unmoored, like I had been set adrift in a stormy sea. But slowly, I began to find my footing. Therapy helped. It gave me the tools to process my emotions, to understand that her suggestion wasn't a reflection of my worth or the value of our marriage. It was about her, her desires, her inability to appreciate what we had. And in time, I realized that I deserved better. My family, to their credit, welcomed me back with open arms. They never said, "I told you so," though I'm sure they thought it. They simply offered me the love and support I so desperately needed. For the first time in years, I felt like I was home. As for her, I heard through mutual friends that she tried the open relationship route with someone else. It didn't last. Apparently, she discovered that the excitement she was searching for wasn't all it was cracked up to be. She's single now, still chasing whatever it is she thinks will make her happy. Part of me feels sorry for her, but mostly, I feel relief. Relief that I'm no longer part of her chaotic search for fulfillment. Today, I'm in a much better place. I've reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I'd forgotten about, and even started dating again. Trusting someone new hasn't been easy, but I'm learning to open my heart again. I know now that love isn't about sacrifice, it's about partnership, about two people building something together with mutual respect and trust.